This is a presentation on budget management. The goal of budget management is to control project cost within the approved budget and deliver the expected project goals. Every project has a budget that describes the amount of funds available to produce the specified budget scope and in the approved plan schedule. Beware of little expenses. A small leak can sink a great ship. That is a great quote from Benjamin Franklin. And it applies to project because it's the little expenses, the little added costs that are added to the project that at the end can become a significant problem to the project manager. Here's our process, and we have again our inputs, the information that we need to define our budget, to execute the budget, control it, update it, and produce our outputs and the information in the documents that we're going to use to manage our budget. Planning means defining the budget, estimating all the costs, and developing a final project budget. Executing the budget is authorizing all planned expenses. Checking is controlling it, reviewing reports, identifying variances. The adapting phase is updating it, making the necessary modifications to bring the project under budget again. Estimating the budget, there are three types of estimates. The initial estimate happens during the proposal. Is the idea to get a quick idea of the project cost, but has a very low level of accuracy. The next one is the contract estimate, happens during the proposal. Is the response and then during the process of thorough negotiation, and its accuracy is medium. Then the third one is the definitive estimate. It happens during the planning phase, and the purpose is to monitor actual costs and purchases, and its accuracy is much higher. The methods for estimating a budget are analogous, meaning that I use information from a similar project and I practically make some corrections, but I basically end up with the same figure. The top-down estimate means that for a given fixed budget, I need to find out how much I can do with that project. So it's defining how many activities I can do with that amount. The bottom-up is the same as the top-down, meaning that for a certain fixed amount of activities, what will be the total budget of that work. We use a chart where we then again identify every activity with this WBS, and we have our activities, and we place next to the activity an estimate of that budget. So once I have all those activities estimated, and they can add it all together, and that will be my total budget. This is an activity-based budget that helps me identify the cost on each one of the activities. There is also an activity based on an account on a chart of accounts. So I can have my project budget and I can summarize them or group them by the different accounting codes used by either the organization or the donor, and then I have my totals and they are in a map and I have my total budget. The limitations on this one is that even though I can see the information and I can produce a balance sheet or information that from my accounting organization, it's difficult to identify the amount of activities I have available based on the balance of my budget. This is one of those typical reports that we have in organizations tracking personnel costs, professional services, and you will see the actual cost during that month, the planned budget for that month, the variances, what was the year-to-date expenses and the budget, and the remaining amount. So if I look at my totals, I find out how much money I have left available for each one of those accounting areas. Most donors will prefer this type of information because they look at the overall health of the project just by looking at the typical accounting codes. But for our purposes and in project management, it's also useful to have them by activity. When I have my information on my budget, I can create this interesting chart for each one of those periods on a 12-month project. I start adding up all the costs that will happen on a specific month. So once I have all those codes, I can see that they produce this interesting chart that shows that the life cycle of my project, where I see a beginning where there's little work happening, then I see most of the work happening during the implementation, and then down again when I'm closing this project. I can also use the same concept, but instead of having the independent cost, I start adding the map. So every month I add the total planned cost for my project, and I end up with this other type of curve. It's called the S-curve because it helps me understand how I'm planning the use of all my budget from beginning to end. It is useful because in a simple diagram I can look then at my plan and my actuals, meaning that I can monitor how I make progress. Like in month 4, I see that I have spent less than I have planned, but here on month 7, now I spend more than I planned. And at the end of the project, I can see then that I didn't spend as much as I originally planned on my project, which could be a problem for certain donors. We're going to see in our next presentation how we use this curve in project management to help us monitor and start making decisions early in the project. Thank you for your attention.